Welcome to Art Talk with April. I'm April Harris. I'm the artist of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. And this podcast is going to be about all things art. We'll talk about books, invite some artists to interviews, and much, much more. Let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Art Talk with April. Today we have Veronica Funk, and believe it or not, this is our second recording, and so we're trying really hard to do a great talk for you guys, and even talk about some things that maybe we missed the first time because of technical difficulties. So, welcome, Veronica. Thank you so much for doing this again. Oh my gosh.
It's fun to talk to you, April. So this is good.
And I love your art in the background. The way you have it this time is really nice because I feel like I can really see it, you know? So that's awesome. And so why don't you tell us about, where you're located and kind of your beginnings in art, like, your childhood, how you were inspired and that kind of thing.
So I live in Airdrie, Alberta, Canada, so near the Rocky Mountains. I can see the Rocky Mountains outside my window, so that's exciting. It's in the distance, but they're there. We're foothills. But I grew up in Northern Manitoba near the Churchill River, so it was in the boreal forest, but so we weren't past the tree line. We were far north, and there I grew up doing a lot of Indigenous-based artwork because of community we were in. So lots of weaving and beading and moccasin making. But I knew since I was a little girl, I've always wanted to do creative things. And so my parents are immigrants from South America. So my name comes from the Archie comics because that's how my mom learned English.
Wow.
And so I started by drawing the Archie comics. That's how I started when I was in elementary school. And then eventually I moved to Alberta when I was in senior high and then went to college, Red Deer College, where I took fundamentals of art and design. And so that was in the mid 80s. And since then, I've worked in careers in management and administration, but I always did art at the same time. I was always painting and drawing because I was really intimidated by paint when I was first starting out. It took a long time for me to get comfortable with color. I liked drawing, but wanted to paint so desperately. And I only improved by being mentored by other artists, working with artists through like the Winnipeg Art Gallery, because I was back in Manitoba for a while, and different things like that. So speaking to other artists through the years, I've been really lucky.
Yeah. It's amazing how, I don't know, just connecting within these podcasts, that just speaking to people who are on different parts of the journey and hearing their perspective of where they're coming from and what they've been through or haven't been through yet, So it's really interesting because then you start to think about your own journey and where you've been and where you're going and that kind of thing. And it's so inspiring. And they always have good tips and things, and you connect on a level that really, if you asked another business person or somebody like that, they wouldn't really get it as much as another artist would get it.
Especially because art is such a personal and vulnerable thing. And business people they separate, that's just business. Well, for artists, it's both. It's business, home, family, art. It's all interconnected. And it's important, I think, for it to be interconnected. And I think business should do a little more of that too, to be honest,
Yeah, really. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about was you've had work published in magazines, you've been in many shows, you've got work showing at different places. What is your experience there? I feel like, what is your advice as far as the difference between maybe showing in a gallery or a public space or even sharing online?
Well, I've tried everything because I've been doing this since the mid 80s, but really really started exhibiting and things like that 24 years ago, something like that. It's almost a quarter of a century now. But and when I started, there was no like galleries were the only really space you could exhibit in, the odd cafe, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity for a lot of public spaces and things like that. So the first thing I did was get in a gallery, and I got into markets and I've tried everything. And I found for some people, something like a market is just so valuable. They get lots of contacts, they build up their mailing list, they have a lot of sales. And same thing with the internet now. Like some people, it's because you do have to pay a commission, anywhere between 40 to 60% of the sales of your work through a gallery.
Yeah.
I have found the most success. I've just found markets. I was just exhausted and I just didn't want to paint or anything for a few weeks after. So I just found that just did not work for me. But I love sharing my work in public spaces. And I've been doing that at libraries, hospitals, cafes for years. And I've sold a lot of work because I painted well over 5,000 paintings in my career. And I've sold tons through public spaces.
Wow.
But I think as an artist, I think it's good to try each little thing. Don't invest a ton of money. I think anybody that suggests, you have to spend this much money in order to do this, you don't. I don't pay for my web space. I don't pay for marketing. I pay for inexpensive business cards that I include with some of my stuff, but a lot of my stuff goes through galleries, so I don't even need a lot of that. But where I spent money on was my education, because I think that was the most important. And even more than learning from people, it was the advice they shared. And I think that has been invaluable through the years. But one of the things I would say, do a lot of work, like just keep working, you'll get better. Have an online presence of some sort. You need a website. You can have a free platform. There's lots out there. Get on Instagram. That's a really good platform for visual arts, right? And if you're comfortable with Facebook, Twitter, I'm not. So I'm not on those platforms. I've tried and I found it just depleted me. I just was exhausted by it. So my main focus is my work. As I had mentioned before, I'm a master artist with a group called levelingup.ca. And what it is it's professional artists that have been in the field for over 20 years that are mentoring new artists or emerging or aspiring artists.
Sure.
And it's just so nice to be able to share the things I've learned and share from the mistakes that I've made with other people. And I think it's really valuable for people to learn that you're not the only one in this boat. And what you have to offer is valuable too. It doesn't mean that somebody's better or worse. It just means you just got to find the right audience, the right eyes for what you do. And it's going to be different. So you need to put yourself into your work, and then you need to put yourself out there, really get your work in front of other people's eyes.
I can't tell you how many times I've met an artist just at a gathering or, just out in public or something, and having conversation, and I'm like, well, do you show your art anywhere? Do you have an Instagram? Do you, have a website or anything? They're like, no. Yeah. You're like, what? Come on. Why aren't you sharing? Like, sharing is a real, I guess, like a hump that people have trouble getting over. It's very scary. Yeah.
It is. And it's interesting, though, once you get out there, I have had very little negative response online, and if somebody doesn't like my work, they just stop following or don't follow or whatever. They don't usually leave a nasty comment. And, not everything everybody does is to everybody's taste.
Sure.
But for the most part, the arts community is extremely encouraging and supportive, right? Yeah. And it's for years I didn't send out an e-newsletter, and people would ask me, at a dinner party or an event, and say, like, what are you doing? I want to know what you're doing. I want to be able to support you in some way, like even to send you a good, comment or something, or share it with someone else who's looking for artwork. So I think you need to get yourself out there and kind of harden up a little bit, but at the same token, be yourself, be positive. If you're feeling, not very good one day, especially, we know that the last couple of years have been tough. Just stay away from it. Like, get in your studio and paint or create something. That'll make you feel better than anything. Go out for a walk. Stay away from it. Don't think you have to do this or have to do that. Try something. If it doesn't fit with you, try something else.
Yeah. It took me a really long time to get there where, like, as a younger artist coming out of college, you just kind of felt like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And when it didn't happen and you were procrastinating or nervous about it or didn't know where to start, it was just like, okay, am I going to be able to do this? And then it just sort of snowballs and you're like, and then time passes and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to do that. I guess I'm going to,
It's never too late. Something, try it again later, and you'll build confidence. That's one of the things when I started speaking in public and, and that I was so nervous because I'm an introvert at heart. But the more I talked and then people would respond and say, oh my gosh, I had the same experience or something similar, or I feel the same way. Then suddenly you realize it's really important to share what you do and how you feel about what you do, because there are people that will connect with it. And that's important.
Yeah. I mean, even just one person hearing your story and being like, oh, okay. Like, I thought I couldn't do it that way, or I never thought about, maybe just not worrying about trying to accomplish something and just working on the art part of it and, just going through your own journey of expression and getting into that good place, like a flow, instead of like, okay, I need to get into this gallery. I need to contact this person or do this, get my website up and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and everything can come in bits and pieces, but one of the most valuable pieces of advice that I got many years ago was pay attention to what draws your attention. And that means if you like, cafes, sit and draw in cafes. If you like, trees, draw or paint trees, like pay attention. If something is important to you, home life, that's how I started painting chairs and furniture in my home. And that was my first exhibit. And I think it was because before that I was dabbling in this, trying that, wanted to be a watercolorist. I'm just not, and, try different things. It's fun. And I try these things, but I always come back to acrylic on canvas. And I just follow that little, something, that nugget that just draws my attention. And then I focus on it for a while. And that's where actually these project-based works came from. Is I started, I think it was 2013, I did my first 52-week project. So for a month, I painted an animal on 7 by 14 inch canvases for a year. So every week for a year, 52 weeks. And I was just trying to better my skill set. I was playing with a variety of media to narrow down what I like to work in. And I was just wanting to push myself because I hadn't really drawn or painted an animal since high school and college. And it was something I was interested in because growing up north, part of the teachings were like, pay attention to what animals show up for you a lot because there's messages in that. And so that first 52 weeks project led to another and another, and then my 100 Days Nasty Women project, which thank you for being part of that. It's been a few years. But, and it just kept leading to, and, the portraits came from my youngest daughter saying, Mom, you haven't done portraits since college, because that's how I got into college, was drawing portraits. And I hadn't really painted them. So I did my first 52 weeks heroes project, just different women that inspired my daughters and I through our lives.
Sure.
And I realized, you know what, there's still inequality in the world. And I want to speak for women. That is something that's important to me as a woman, as a mother of 2 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have so far to go. There is no equality. There isn't. So, and plus women inspire me, and I'm tired of that old, you know, those stories, how women are competitive and that. I don't think so. I think, you know, you might not get along with another woman, but that's okay. That's just human nature and personalities. But women inspire me. I am so grateful for all the women in my life. That is a thing and that's continuing on. So my next project is going to be women's work.
Yeah.
And I'm still looking for women. I'll be starting probably mid-February, and then it'll be on 8 by 10 inch gallery depth canvases. And what I'm looking for is a couple of pictures and just a story of a woman's work, whether it's a housewife or a teacher or a student or whatever, what they do or what they have done or what they'd like to do, because everything that a woman contributes is invaluable. It is important.
Yeah, sure.
I want to showcase that.
Yeah. And so with this women's work series that you're going to be working on, basically you're looking for like photography or like a picture of the person.
Portraits. Yeah, it can be a selfie, it can be whatever. 1 or 2, that's great. Yeah.
And then you're actually, don't you put a piece of their story or something like that into it too? Yeah.
So I'd like people to share with me, because that's what I've been doing. I've been creating, I don't have any here right now, but I've been creating these little blurb books. So this one was the first one I did, Sacred Vessel. And this just is about wiring artwork and how I connected with galleries and a little bit of everything that I've talked about and written about for many years. But I create these 2 for the bodies of work that I create. So, and then I include the stories that are shared with me. So right now, actually February 5th is my opening for the grandmother series that I did in 2020. Okay. Yeah, and people shared photos of their grandmothers and stories of their grandmothers with me.
I can't imagine. That had to have been amazing.
And especially because COVID started 3 months in, in Canada into that year. And so it was even more important to, save and share these stories and pictures of our grandmothers.
Or celebrate those people. Yeah.
And they've done so much, I can't believe what those women had to overcome, like we've come so far because of them. So.
Yeah. We've come so far, but we're not all the way there. And I think people forget that, they're like, they think, okay, well, women aren't staying at home anymore or whatever, and they're in the workforce and all of that, but it's still kind of not, all the way there. I completely agree.
Everybody wants to be in the workforce. That's not fair to push people to do something that they're not comfortable with, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that, and you've mentioned it, is that you work in series, right? Mm-hmm. So why do you do it that way? Why do you work in series like that?
Well, I've always created bodies of work because that was something I learned in college. Like you don't get proficient at something by doing it once. It's like riding a bike. You got to keep practicing and practicing. And I get better about speaking about the work I do when I create a body of work because I think about it more and talk about it more. I can see where something is successful and where something may not be, but I also learn how to take something that doesn't quite feel right and fix it in some way, So another great piece of advice that I received years ago. So I developed frozen shoulder in one shoulder and then in the other, and it took years of physio and, all sorts of treatment and everything. And I'm still struggling a bit with it. So I went from working like 3 and 4 and 5 foot canvases down to small canvases, but at least I can still paint. So I'm really grateful. But an artist told me years ago that she was a mentor. She suggested hanging my work on the wall in progress because then you can look back and forth, see what's working, what's not working, how, when you're working on something else, you suddenly get this aha moment and you can go back to a previous piece and figure out that's where I was missing something.
Yeah.
Could be contrast, could be color, could be pattern or whatever.
Sure.
So now I prep all my canvases. I've got some little ones here. So layers of patterns. And then what I do is I now hang all that on my wall. Oh, and then as I do each piece, I put it back on the wall as I create each piece. And I think that's really important for me to see, because I remember when I did my first 52 weeks project, I just stuck everything in a closet as I was completing each.
Yeah.
And I wasn't feeling confident about it. You're vulnerable, you're dealing with a new subject matter or a little bit of a different method of working, and hanging them on the wall and seeing that body of work grow, I suddenly realized, wow, I am creating something important here. Yeah. And if it doesn't matter to anybody else, that's okay. It's important for me, right? Yeah. But it did matter to other people. And the other thing, I held myself accountable by posting every Monday the new painting that I created the previous week. Yeah. And people would start saying, if I didn't post first thing Monday morning, people would message me, what's your painting? So it was great for accountability, but also great for the support and encouragement too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I did a 100 days in 100 days. That was just crazy. I like the idea of doing the 52. It's a little easier. I did because 100 in 100 days was nuts, but it did give me a lot of, the people online that were following, they really pushed me to keep going. And I think previous to that, I hadn't been creating very much. And then it was like I was doing this series and people online were holding me accountable. And so then I was pushed to do it. And then I had to finish, and complete the thing. Yeah. And it was just so, I don't know, life-changing, to work on a series like that. And I think what you were pointing out there too was that seeing it on the walls, you're able to kind of keep everything consistent and build on like a story or a journey through it, and see how much you've done, and see how much you've got to go, and kind of bring it all together into a cohesive series, right?
For me, the story behind the work is just as important, because I like writing and reading and things like that. So when I was trying to figure out what is my art career going to look like, I love mentoring. Like, I love helping someone else. I don't want people to waste money foolishly thinking, if I spend X amount of dollars, then I'll be successful. Or if I have this show, then I'll be successful. My first show was amazing. It was on television. There was a jazz band. The mayor of Calgary was there. Bernard Callebaut chocolates, which are like the best chocolates, champagne, everything. Yeah. And I didn't sell one piece from that show. There were 250 people that came. That was my first exhibit. Wow. And so I have learned, the career, it goes like this, but I think businesses do that too. I don't think it matters what you do. It's just the nature of our world. And I don't think it's bad. I've learned to take the quiet times as times for preparation. I carry these little Moleskine books around in my purse or pocket, and I jot down notes and draw little sketches and see where those little ideas start leading me. But and you're right. Seeing the work on the wall and seeing that you've actually accomplished stuff, it's a good feeling. Suddenly you realize, I'm not just doing this little hobby thing on my own. Like, I'm actually doing something that matters, if not for nothing else, to me, right? It's important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as artists, we don't really give ourselves enough credit for that. We're always looking, well, not always, but a lot of us look for outside validation and someone buying a piece of artwork and that kind of thing. So the fact that you had this huge exhibition, had the people coming and had all of this stuff going on, that was a success in itself, even though you didn't necessarily sell anything. It was like, now people know you're there, and so that's a big deal too.
Well, that's interesting that you say that too, because that is the other thing I've learned. Another artist told me this, that what happens is you got to be doing the work. And even when there's no, exhibit opportunities or whatever, no interviews or whatever, you got to keep doing the work, because what happens, somebody will remember you and come back and you have nothing. If you didn't continue. So, and then they won't come back. Then you'll be forgotten. Yeah. But so it's just important to keep working. And for like I keep saying, for nothing else, do it for you. Yeah. And other people will respond to it. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel about, I'm completely going off script, but how do you feel about art as kind of a way to deal with other issues in your life too, like as like a therapeutical kind of practice? I know you're a mom and you had this other career and everything. Like, how did that affect your work and like your life as far as continuing to do art through those times?
Because like you said, there are those quiet times too, and where, nothing happens for a while or whatever, but I make a point of creating something every day, even if it's just to get in and do some of my airbrushing or something.
Sure.
Just to tidy up and set up for my next session. It's important to get into my studio every day, but at one point I became so disheartened, because that was, before we really had all this we didn't have social media really then yet or anything. And where before you could take control of your own career, it was all in the hands of galleries at that point. Oh. Things were getting lost, my pieces or damaged, or I wasn't getting paid for work that's sold, because I had work in galleries across the country. And now I only keep it very close and just a few, because I have a little more control over that. But I thought I decided to quit, because I had a great opportunity for a job in management, but I found I was bursting into tears all the time. And there's clinical depression, alcoholism, suicide, addictions in my family history. And I thought, oh no, I'm there now.
Yeah.
But my daughters, who are now women, they were younger than, like middle schoolish. Yeah. And I sat at the table and I started eating and I just started crying. And I said, I don't know what's wrong. And it makes me think, Mom, you just need to paint.
Oh my gosh.
Art supplies and everything. And so I started just for me. I decided no more listening to galleries, no more listening to anybody. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. So that was probably about 15 years ago. Wow. And I have not looked back since. I know I'll find a place for my work, even if I have to look a little longer, like the grandmothers has taken. Mm-hmm. Usually I exhibit, shortly after my series is done, but it's taken over a year with pandemic and everything. And just have patience. It'll come. Yeah.
That's such a powerful story too, because I think a lot of times artists will go through those lulls and you're like not making anything and then you kind of get to where you're just, it's almost like you lose a part of yourself. And that creativity is so important to how you express yourself and get those feelings out and, deal with things that are going on, stress. It just feels good to make something, even if no one in the world sees it. It doesn't matter. Like I've painted things just to decorate my house. Like this stuff back here like doesn't look anything like what I would normally paint, but I do all these things just because it feels so much better when I do. And my husband and I, we joke, he's like, man, you get grouchy if you're not doing any kind of art stuff. You get really irritable. Like you've got to get in your therapy basically, and have that, get your feelings out and relax. Yeah,
it is. And I took 3 psychology courses, because I've been taking university courses. So art history I'm taking right now. But so I'm not a psychologist or anything, but it all talks about the importance of doing something physical and something creative.
Yeah.
And, physical, get outside and go for a walk, or,
area.
Something like do something physical and do something creative. And that is a piece that's missing in our schools. They push the physical, but then the physical becomes competitive.
Yeah.
You got to stop doing that, because guess what? How many high school students actually go on to have a career in?
Yeah.
It's not
like hardly ever.
So teach these kids how to be healthy and happy. And art needs to be on the agenda right from.
It should be very important, I think, just for our mental health.
Yes.
Especially these days, just to have another way to express yourself. And, it's fun and crafty or whatever, but it's strange how powerful it is, and how healing it is.
I have not felt isolated this last 2 years because I've been working on these. So this one's called Extraordinary Women. So they're Canadian women that, have helped change the face of our country in some way. And then, the grandmothers have made a difference in the lives of us today.
Yeah.
But I just felt like this connection, plus there's stories people share with me. And even with this series, some of these, like they're Olympic athletes and politicians and writers and musicians and actors. And some of them have reached out to me, which has been amazing.
Oh, neat. Oh, that's so cool. They just, I guess, find you online or.
Yeah, and I try to tag people if I paint them, because I don't think it's fair if I paint somebody and don't let them know that I've done this, because it gives them an opportunity. If they don't want to be part of this, they can tell me, like, please remove.
Yeah.
Fine, I will do that. But typically what I like to do is put a call out, let people respond. And that's what I did with Nasty Women. It was, a positive twist on a negative situation.
I was like, ooh, yeah, I want to be part of that.
And then, of course, now women's work, I'm going back to.
Because really the way that you're and that's kind of part of your vision, isn't it? That you're, bringing in community in a way to create these series. And so it's very relational, and everyone's sort of involved in a way, the people that join in and decide, okay, I want to be a part of that. So then it's like they're part of the whole process. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was, so what is something like some advice that you would give a younger artist as far as, getting started and to keep going?
I don't think it should be just for yourself. I think it's important to share what you do with other people. And there are always local cafes and things willing, and libraries, hospitals, interested in sharing people's work. So keep your eyes out, peeled for opportunities, and just keep working for sure. And surround yourself with people that are supportive and encouraging too.
Sure. And don't be afraid, I think, to reach out to those places.
Yeah.
If you see someone who's sharing, showing some local art, their cafe or their restaurant or whatever it is, just go up and ask and say, because they'll probably be like, oh yeah, here you go. We'll just let me know, send me on my email, some pictures or whatever.
Or Instagram or something out there is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get up, once you do it, you get over it pretty quickly. I feel like, being afraid of doing that. It seems like a big deal, but then afterwards you're just like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun.
And if you're interested in gallery representation, once you have a body of work, just go onto their websites and they'll often have calls for art or artists. Yeah. Sometimes it's a matter of just showing one piece in a group show, and that's fabulous. I do that in Vancouver all the time. I ship work to group shows out there, which is very nice for me to have my work ends up in Germany and England and, like all over the world, which is fantastic.
No, this is crazy. And then who is your favorite artist?
Oh, yes. So we talked about this before. This is one of my favorite books, Georgia O'Keeffe, Portrait of an Artist by Lori Lyle. I was introduced to Georgia O'Keeffe when I was in college in the 80s. And then years later, I got to see her work in person at the Kalokar O'Keeffe exhibit in Vancouver. I got to watch an interview with her, and I just love her tenacity and strength. And she doesn't accept no for an answer. And that I thought was incredible always. And another artist, this one's Canadian. I brought up two of her books. It's Doris McCarthy. And she built her own house. She was out east in Ontario. Built her own house. She taught. And they're both like landscape artists. And I'm not a landscape artist really, but I just love their use of color and line in their work. And that's what I really like to incorporate in my own work too. So these are probably my two top ones.
That's awesome.
I love that color. And she worked hard until she was very old. So that's very inspiring for me too.
Yeah. I really like that as well. I mean, not that I'm super old or anything, but it's just like, I guess, just becoming into my 40s and feeling like, okay, you're getting into your 40s, you're getting into that middle life, but hearing people, literally starting later in life, like Grandma Moses, for instance, and you're like, wow, like what led her to be so brave and to just do that, instead of saying,
it's the age, she thought, what the heck at this point?
I don't have nothing to lose. I'm just going to do this, It's so fun. But I love Georgia O'Keeffe as well, as we talked about before. And that book is just amazing. Mm-hmm. And I actually, went and looked on my bookshelf after our first interview and I was like, where's that book? And I actually have it as a audio book now. It is free on if you have a Audible account. It's a free book that you can just listen to, and it's like 13 hours long, but
perfect when you're creating, right?
Yeah. It's so interesting. And to be an artist at a time, a woman artist in a time where everything is just so male dominated, and how she just pushed through all of those things and made this whole career for herself in a time where it was just unthought of, It's like Mary Cassatt too is one of those artists at that time that was just very, pushed through the boundaries of, this male dominated sort of thing. And I'm trying to think who else was there.
Artists are still underrepresented in galleries to this day. It's very shocking. And I've been learning, but a ton of female Canadian artists that were working in the 1910s and that. We never heard of these. War. They were documenting like war, the First World War and things like that. Like, why do we not know about these women?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is really interesting is when women are mothers and also pushing that boundary, because I think that that's one of those things that I found is that if people are realizing that you're a mother or like you have young children and you're trying to be an artist, it's like there's no way that you could possibly do that.
One of my instructors in college said you can't have a family and be an artist.
Yeah.
And I found out later he had a family, but his wife left him because he was a cheater, you know. And fortunately, eventually the school got rid of him. So that I was grateful for. You know what? Having my kids, it was hard when they were growing up. They're now 22, 27, but it was tough because organizing around them. And I'm a nurturer and a homebody, and I had a hard time leaving them all the time, but it was good. It was good for them to see me, you know, be focused on my career, but not to the detriment of my family.
Yeah.
But it also, they inspired me. Like they inspired me to, you know, get more vibrant with color, even when some galleries wanted me to tone it down and things like that. Like they were very inspirational for me.
Yeah. I find it really interesting to be playful and imaginative with my kids and how that just makes me kind of loosen up and not be so serious grown up, you know, and they beg me to paint and draw and stuff like that. And they want to do that. And then, I mean, your children were like, Mom, you need to paint, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't understand why that still happens, I think.
Oh, I think it's in many careers. As soon as you're a mother, you're disregarded, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. Because I think women, I'm not saying that women who don't have children don't have these skills, but you use a lot of these executive functioning, multitasking, organizing things that you it's like you level up in life and you're like having to take on so much more. And then you have these little young creative beings who are just discovering life, right? Like they're just discovering the world, and how inspiring that can be for a person.
That's for sure. Help me see the world through a different lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not to take myself so seriously sometimes. And also they taught me when to say no to people. Like they've been like, to this day, they say, you don't have to put up with that, Mom. You don't block them, talk to them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, thanks.
I tell my mom that too. I'm like, why are you doing that? You don't have to do that. Oh, that's so fun. So where can people find your art?
So I'm in some galleries. I teach online. I do have some of my things like, I know I showed you this before, my little bees. I have little things that. Galleries now, but everything's on my website at veronicafunk.com, where I'm teaching, where my work is available. Okay. So this was the tarot deck that I made, and I consider it more of an inspirational deck, you know, where you pull a card for the day or whatever. So this is one of my heroes paintings. So what I did is I incorporated several different bodies of work. So, and then my first 52 weeks project, and then I did a series of wildflowers, and
that's fun.
Yeah, I've got some of my canoes in here, but yeah, so this is, a lot of people like getting these because
those are beautiful.
My work in a little package. So yeah, so I have everything. I've got my links to this deck, links to my books, links to the galleries, and links to the teaching with Leveling Up as well.
All right.
I'm starting a new session of Leveling Up in March.
Okay.
And so it's small groups, about like maximum 8 people. And I've been working with artists from around the world, which is very cool.
That's fun. Yeah.
It's fun to see these artists take, because what I really like to focus on is, okay, you've got some work together now, what do I do with it, right? How to create a statement and a bio and a website and things like that, how to connect with galleries or markets or whatever. So just to, and what's so nice is these groups meet mid-month as well. So I meet with them monthly for 2 hours, and then they meet mid-month, and then there's other different panel discussions and stuff, and how they become, enmeshed and support and encourage each other. That is so awesome. Wonderful. Yeah. It's been amazing.
Oh, and I feel like all artists need that, that's so important to us. So if anyone's interested in the leveling up, you said March?
Yeah, I'll be starting my next session. So it's not open for sign up yet, but it'll open up, I think, next month. So.
Okay. And then February 4th, you're having, was it February 4th? You're having the
exhibit?
The exhibit.
And actually, I just got an email from them yesterday, and because of COVID, again, what we're going to do is they usually do an art talk at the exhibit reception. So what they're going to do is do a Facebook Live. So that's through the Lake Center. Yeah, and you'll find information on my website as well. But that's for the grandmothers. And so they're going to do a live at 2:00 Mountain Time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so I could join that.
They'll do a little tour of the exhibit. And so what we've done is we're doing the portrait I painted plus the print up of the story and some of the photographs of each of the grandmothers.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Oh, that I've got to do that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this all over again. And you are just amazing and so inspiring. And so I think you give some life-changing advice, having your experience and everything. So I really appreciate it, Veronica.
Thanks, April. Really good to talk to you again.
Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe.